There is a house not far from where my parents live. There have always been grim tales and superstitions surrounding it, and accounts of ghostly apparitions were passed around the neighborhood. The stories stretch back to the years before I was born. To begin, the house just looked haunted. It was old, most likely from the late Victorian era, 2.5 stories high. The outside was red brick and a light gray sandstone. The large tiled roof was crumbling and its sprawling front porch decaying. There were broken windows on each floor that stared blankly back at the world. Everyone in the area stayed away from it. Everyone, that is, but me. You see, I always believed I had some kind of a connection with it, and would often go explore the grounds. This night was really no different, except, of course, that it was Halloween. All the costumes and haunted hayrides were in full swing.
Trick or treat.
I had always loved this time of year, what with the cool air and the crunch of the falling leaves. However, this year was different. I had lost my parents to a horrendous car accident 3 months earlier, and I really wasn't feeling the holiday. I decided I was just going to stay home and watch some movies. That was until my one friend called and convinced me not to stay home all night. We figured we'd go do some ghost hunting at the old house. We had always enjoyed that hobby, and what better way than to get into the spooky feel of the holiday and also get my mind off of things than to go do a ghost hunt. I agreed, hoping it'd lift my mood. I grabbed my flashlight and an old tape recorder my dad had given me. Then, reaching for my coat, I opened the door. It was a full moon, and the chilly fall air was refreshing on my flushed skin. I wondered why that strange house had always been avoided by so many people. Shrugging, I put my hands in my pockets and head out. I wandered the neighborhood, lost in my own little world. The streets were full of kids running around having fun trick-or-treating. I remember those years when I was that age, and my parents would take me around. At the thought of my parents, sadness stabbed at me like a rusty blade. I choked back a sob. After taking a minute to compose myself, I started to head towards my destination. The house sat on a hill at the outskirts of town. It had once belonged to some prominent member of society. I imagined what kind of history it had seen. It must have been beautiful at one time, full of life and warmth. Yet now, as I approached, it loomed large and imposing, staring down at me like a hungry animal. The cold wind whispered as the leaves blew around the bare trees. Their large branches looked like ghastly fingers reaching upward, grasping towards the pale moon. As I approached the building, the rusty gate slowly swung open, startling me. I brushed it off. Must be the wind, I thought, as I cautiously entered. I gently walked through the grounds. They were overgrown, and the once grand statues and flower pots were now dilapidated, and the large wraparound porch was dark and desolate. Fear welled up inside me as I hesitantly climbed the creaky old steps. A faded sound echoed into the cold night. A scream? I almost jumped out of my skin. Then, looking around, I yelped. What was that? I fumbled for the small flashlight I had in my pocket. Turning it on, I looked left and right. A thin beam of light to cut through the darkness around me. After a moment, I hesitantly walked towards the front door. The leaves crunched. Who's there? I say, moving more frantically as I take a breath to calm myself. I see nothing. I was very confused. Surely my friend should have been here by now, but there was no sign of him. I checked the door to see if it was unlocked. It wasn't. After a few more minutes of waiting, I figured I was being stood up. Turning away from the door, I started to descend the stairs when the door slowly opened. My heart pounding, I jumped off the porch as I felt a cold chill on my neck. Goosebumps running up and down my whole body. I swallowed the lump that was forming in my throat. I called out again, this time facing the doorway. After waiting another few seconds, I heard voices. They were low and barely audible, almost like a whisper. Anger flares inside me. I figured my friend had brought someone with him, and they were trying to mess with me. I mounted the stairs that led back up to the porch, and I entered.